Assalamu alaikum, adab, good morning, sat sri akal, namaskar. My name is Syed Kaswar Abbas. Today, I'm going to talk about United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 15, Life on Land. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. Definition and explanation. Terrestrial ecosystems provide a series of goods, raw material for construction and energy, food, and series of ecosystem services, including the capture of carbon, maintenance of soil quality, provision of habitat for biodiversity, maintenance of water quality, as well as regulation of water flow and erosion control. Therefore, contributing to reduce the risk of natural disasters such as floods and landslides, regulate climate and maintenance of productivity of agriculture systems. Maintaining these ecosystems greatly support climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts. Role of businesses. Business and ecosystems are linked. Companies affect ecosystems because they rely on the provisioning services, for example, fresh water, fiber, food, and regulatory services, for example, climate regulation, flood control, water purification. Ecosystems provide 60% of the world's ecosystem services have been degraded over the past 50 years, and we continue devaluing our national resources, natural resources, at an alarming rate. Estimates indicate that 2 to 5 trillion US dollars of ecosystem services are lost each year from deforestation alone. While many of the effects are felt locally first, the long term consequences are global, and the scale is highly relevant to business, presenting risks and opportunities. To retain the integrity and vitality of natural resources today and for future generations, and to ensure long term socio-economic growth and prosperity, sustainable management of land is key. Business can directly contribute to this SDG by measuring, managing, and mitigating its impact and dependence on land and ecosystems. Companies can implement strategies to incentivize sustainable land use, responsible forest management, and environmental stewardship. To secure supply of natural resources and raw material in the future, companies will also have to increase efforts to restore degraded land. By scaling up research and development and innovation, investing in natural infrastructure, and implementing responsible sourcing policies, companies play an integral part in preserving and restoring vital ecosystems, promoting the sustainable use of lands and forests while retaining consumer confidence in their product offerings. Data and statistics, facts and figures. A. Around 1.6 billion people depend on forests for their livelihood. B. Forests are home to more than 80% of all terrestrial species of animals, plants, and insects. C. 74% of poor are directly affected by land degradation globally. D. Of the 8,300 animal breeds known, 8% are extinct and 22% are at risk of extinction. Over 80% of the human diet is provided by planets. Only three cereal crops, rice, maize, and wheat, provide 60% of energy intake. F. As many as 80% of people living in rural areas in developing countries rely on traditional plant based medicines for basic health care. Forests. Forests have a significant role in reducing the risk of natural disasters, including floods, droughts, landslides, and other extreme events. At global level, forests mitigate climate change through carbon sequestration, contribute to the balance of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and humidity in the air, and protect watersheds, which supply 75% of fresh water worldwide. Investing in forests and forestry represent an investment in people and their livelihoods, especially the rural poor, youth, and women. Around 1.6 billion people, including more than 2,000 indigenous cultures, depend on forests for their livelihood. Forests are the most biologically diverse ecosystems on land, home to more than 80% of the terrestrial species of animals, plants, and insects. They also provide shelter, jobs, and security for forest dependent communities. Therefore, the future of forests and forestry in sustainable development at all levels was at the core of 14 World Forestry hosted in Durban from 7 to 11 September 2015. The Durban Declaration called for new partnership among forests, agriculture, finance, energy, water, and other sectors, as well the engagement with indigenous people and local community. The importance of investing in world's forests and of taking political commitment at the highest levels, smart policies, effective law enforcement, innovative partnerships, and funding was also recalled by the UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki moon in his message on the occasion of 2015 International Day of Forests. Both the International Day of Forests, launched in 2013, and the International Year of Forests, proclaimed in 2011, aimed at raising awareness on the importance of all types of forests and of trees outside forests. Forest areas continue to decline at an alarming rate, driven mainly by agriculture expansion. Each year, 10 million hectares of forests are destroyed from 2015 to 2020. Biodiversity. At the Rio Plus 20 conference, member states reaffirmed through paragraph 197 to 204 of the outcome document, the future we want, that intrinsic value of biological diversity as well as the ecological, genetic, social, economic, scientific, educational, cultural, recreational, and aesthetic value of biological diversity and its critical role in maintaining ecosystems that provide essential services which are critical foundation for sustainable development and human well-being. Member states also recognize the severity of global biodiversity loss and degradation of ecosystems and stress the negative impact that this situation has on food security, nutrition, access to water, health of rural poor and people worldwide. Furthermore, the future we want reiterated the importance of implementing the strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020 and achieving the Ichi biodiversity targets adopted at the 10th conference of the parties to the convention. World is falling short in 2020 targets in halting biodiversity loss. Over 31,000 species are threatened with extinction, which is 27% of over 1 lakh and 16,000 assessed species in IUCN Red List. Wildlife trafficking disrupts ecosystems and contributes to the spread of infectious diseases. Pangolins are the intermediary animals that transferred the coronavirus. The equivalent of 3 lakhs and 70,000 pangolins were seized globally from 2014 to 2018. Only a third of 113 countries were on track to achieve their national target to integrate biodiversity in their national planning. Mountains. The outcome document of Rio Plus 20 conference, The Future We Want, recognizes through paragraphs 210 to 212 both the benefits derived from mountain regions are essential for sustainable development and the crucial role played by mountain ecosystems in providing water resources to a large portion of the world population. It also acknowledges the importance of mountains as home to indigenous people and local communities. The future we want warns about the vulnerability of fragile mountain ecosystems to the adverse impacts of climate change, deforestation, and forest degradation, land use change, land degradation, and natural disasters, the marginalization of its communities. Therefore, it invites states to reinforce cooperative action with effective involvement and sharing of experience of all relevant stakeholders and to adopt a long-term vision and holistic approaches, including through incorporating mountain-specific policies into national sustainable development strategies, which could include inter alia poverty reduction plans and programs for mountain areas, particularly in developing countries. Prior to Rio Plus 20, sustainable mountain development was discussed at the third session of the Commission on Sustainable Development and the 19th special session of the General Assembly held in 1997. The following year, the General Assembly also proclaimed 2022 as the International Year of Mountains by adopting without a vote a draft resolution recommended by the Economic and Social Council. Sustainable mountain development is also the subject of Chapter 13 of Agenda 21, which notes that mountains are an important source of water energy, biological diversity, key resources such as minerals, forest products, and agriculture products, and of recreation. Mountain environments represent major ecosystems which are essential to the survival of the global ecosystem, but they are rapidly changing. Many global mountain areas are experiencing environmental degradation. At the same time, about 10% of the world population depends directly on mountain resources, and a much larger percentage draws on mountain resources, including and especially water. Chapter 13 also includes two program areas to further elaborate the problem of fragile mountain ecosystem. These are A. Generating and strengthening knowledge about the ecology and sustainable development of mountain ecosystems, and B. Promoting integrated watershed development and alternative livelihood opportunities. Desertification, land degradation, and drought. The economic and social significance of a good land management, including soil and its contribution to economic growth and social progress, is recognized in paragraph 205 of the Future We Want. In this context, member states express their concern on the challenges posed by sustainable development by desertification, land degradation, and drought, especially for Africa, LDCs and LLDCs. At the same time, member states highlight the need to take action at national, regional, and international level to reverse land degradation, catalyze financial resources from both private and public donors, and implement both the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification (UNCCD) and its 10-year strategic plan and framework 2008 and 2018. Furthermore, in paragraph 207 and 208 of the Future We Want, member states encourage and recognize the importance of partnerships and initiatives for the safeguarding of land resources, future development, and implementation of scientifically based, sound, and socially inclusive methods and indicators for monitoring and assessing the extent of desertification, land degradation, and drought. The relevance of efforts underway to promote scientific research and strengthen the scientific base of activities to address desertification and drought under the UNCCD is also addressed. Combating desertification and drought were discussed by the Commission on Sustainable Development in several sessions in the framework of the Commission multiple years work program CSD 16-17 focused respectively in 2008 and 2009 on desertification and drought, along with the interrelated issues of land, agriculture, rural development, and Africa. In accordance with its multi-year program of work, CSD-8 in 2000 reviewed integrated planning and management of land resources as its sectoral theme. In its decision 8 by 3 on integrated planning and management of land resources, the Commission on Sustainable Development noted the importance of addressing sustainable development through a holistic approach, such as ecosystem management. In order to meet the priority challenges of desertification and drought, sustainable mountain development, prevention and mitigation of land degradation, coastal zones, deforestation, climate change, rural and urban land use, urban growth, and conservation of biological diversity. Deserts are among the fragile ecosystems addressed by Agenda 21, and combating desertification and drought is the subject of Chapter 12. Desertification includes land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid areas resulting from various factors including climatic, various human activities. Desertification affects as much as one-sixth of the world population, 70% of all dry lands, and one quarter of total land areas of the world. It results in widespread poverty as well as in the degradation of billion hectares of rangeland and cropland. Integrated planning and management of land resources is the subject of Chapter 10 of Agenda 21, which deals with the cross sectoral aspects of decision making for the sustainable use and development of natural resources, including the soils, minerals, water, and biota that land comprises. This broad integrative view of land resources, which are essential for life support systems and the productive capacity of the environment, is the basis of Agenda 21's and the Commission on Sustainable Development's consideration of land issues. 2 billion hectares of land on earth degraded, affecting some 3.2 billion people, driving species to extinction and intensifying climate change. Key business themes addressed by this SDG: A. Deforestation and forest degradation. B. Genetic diversity of farms and domesticated animals. C. Land remediation. D. Landscapes, forest management, and fiber sourcing. E. Mountain ecosystems. F. Natural habit degradation. G. Terrestrial and inland freshwater ecosystems. Examples of key business actions and solutions. The below examples are non-exhaustive and some may be more relevant to certain industries than to others. A. Measure, manage, and mitigate impacts on ecosystems and natural resources. B. Scale up best practices for land use planning and management. C. Invest in natural infrastructure as a cost competitive alternative to grey infrastructure. D. Finance the restoration of degraded land for production and or conservation purposes. E. Support and apply landscape approaches based on multi-stakeholder dialogue and collaborative action to overcome social and environmental fracture lines in landscape facing deforestation, land and ecosystem degradation. F. Commit to and implement responsible sourcing practices beyond compliance, applying environmental and social safeguards for all raw materials and commodities. G. Expand markets for responsible forest products and thereby support sustainable forest management. H. Foster product and technology innovation to optimize resource efficiency, reduce impacts on ecosystems, and lower carbon emissions. I. Scale up industrial reuse of water and support watershed protection programs. Islamic perspective on SDG 15, life on land. An example of massive irresponsible human action is the large-scale deforestation resulting in disappearing forest cover. Forests cover about 30% of the Earth's surface, and in addition to providing food security and shelter, they are key to combating climate change and protecting biodiversity. Deforestation and desertification caused by human activities and climate change pose major challenges to sustainable development and have affected the lives and livelihoods of millions of people in fight against poverty. The significance of afforestation is underscored in the following saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam: "If the resurrection were established upon one of you while he has in hands a sapling, then let him plant it." Musnad Ahmad. The planting of trees is highlighted as a significant pious deed in Islam. According to another widely known tradition, the planting of a tree is regarded as an act of continuous charity. Islam forbids willful destruction of the planet, as all creations of Allah, including animals and trees, glorify God in their own way and serve a certain purpose in His own larger scheme of the world. Do you not see that to Allah prostrates whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth, and the sun and the moon and the stars, the mountains, the trees, and moving creatures, and many of the people, but upon many the punishment has been justified. Surah Al-Hajj, Ayah 18. This Islamic notion reinforces the scientific concept of chain of life and interdependence among species, maintaining the balance of life on earth. There is not an animal that lives on the earth, nor a being that flies on its wings, but forms part of communities like you. Surah Al-An'am, ayah 38. Quran reminds humans not to tamper with the Creator's divine balance, here referred to as measure, by reminding them, and the heaven he raised and imposed the balance, that you not transgress within the balance, and establish weight in justice, and do not make the deficient the balance. Surah Ar-Rahman, ayah 7-9. There are numerous verses of the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam which establish the inviolable rule to preserve and protect the environment and conserve resources. Maintaining the balance of life on the planet is a supreme duty of humans and therefore forms part of the divine objectives of Sharia. In terms of the 5 Maqasid al Sharia, the Sharia concerns about the planet may be clearly linked to the objectives of protecting and nurturing the posterity, nasl, are the future generations of human beings. Objectives of Islamic law, Maqasid al Sharia. I would like to refer here to the objectives of Islamic law, Maqasid al Sharia, focusing at the benefits to the humankind. Definition: Maqasid al Sharia are the aims or goals intended by Islamic law for the realization of benefits to the mankind. The primary objectives of the Islamic law is the realization of benefit to the mankind concerning their affairs both in this world and the hereafter. It is generally held that Islamic law in all its branches aims at securing benefit for the people and protecting them against corruption and evil. The Quran clearly states, "And we have sent you, O Muhammad, not but as a mercy for the universe." Al-Anbiya 107. The word mercy, rahmah, in the verse includes compassion, kindness, goodwill, and beneficence. In explaining the above verse, Ibn Qayyum states that Sharia aims at safeguarding the people's interest and preventing them from harm in this world and the next. This is a necessity that is needed by all mankind. Thus, the main objective of Islamic law is to bring benefits to mankind and to prevent them from haram. Jalb manafa wa dar al mafsada. The significance of maqasid in ijtihad. Knowledge on maqasid is necessary in ijtihad. It helps the jurist to rightly understand the legal text, that is the Quran and Sunnah. It also helps the jurists in their ijtihad in arriving at the sound and reasonable rules and brings benefits to the people. Classification and hierarchy of maqasid al-Sharia. The Muslim jurists have classified maqasid with respect to their need and strength into three categories. Number one, the essential maqasid. Al-maqasid al-daruriya. Al-daruriya. These are indispensable maqasid for survival and well-being of mankind in this world and their success in the hereafter. Their neglect will lead to disruption and disorder and could lead to undesirable end. These maqasid are the preservation and protection of 5 fundamental values: religion, deen; life, nafs; ancestry or lineage, nasl; mind or intellect, aql; and property, mal. These are the primary maqasid. These Sharia, on the whole, seek primarily to protect and promote these essential values and validate all measures necessary for their preservation and advancements. For example, prayer, fasting, payment of zakah, and performing hajj are laid down for the protection of the religion. Prohibition of killing and imposition of qisas, retaliation, for the protection of life. Validation of marriage and prohibition of adultery for the protection of lineage. Validation of education and prohibition of drinking alcohol for the protection of intellect. Validation of investment and prohibition of stealing for the protection of property. Number two, the complementary maqasid, al-maqasid al-hajiyah. They seek to establish ease and facility and to remove hardship and difficulty. Their neglect could lead to hardship and to the individual or community, although it does not lead to the disruption of normal life. For example, the validation of combining and shortening of prayer for traveler, the consideration of equality in status, kafa, in marriage, the validation of forward sale, salam, and ijara, the lease and hire. Number three, desirable or embellishment maqasid. Al maqasid al tahsiniya. They seek to attain refinement and perfection in all areas of humankind. Their neglect does not interrupt the normal life and cause hardship to the people, but it might lead to lack of comfort of the life. For example, encouragement of cleanliness, giving charity, covering aura, prohibition of consuming non-halal food, extravagance in expend, stingy. All of these three categories of maqasid, the essential maqasid have priority over complementary maqasid, which in turn have priority over the embellishment. And among the five essential values, the preservation of protection of religion has preference over the preservation and protection of life. Life has higher priority than lineage, and lineage is prior to intellect, and intellect is preferred over property. Elaboration on the five principles, which are mandatory principles of Maqasid Sharia. Religion, Hifzuddin. Protection of religion means ad-deen, means avoiding anything that may violate and destroy the fundamentals, including the defense of the country and status of Islam as the religion of the Federation of Muslim countries, as well as freedom to practice other religions in a peaceful and harmonious manner. It is an obligation of the governments to place the religion at the uppermost level. The protection of the faith of Muslims is the main area to be given attention, such that the piety and faith towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger becomes a priority, with loyalty to the ruler as being important. Life, hifzul nafs. Protection of life, hifzul nafs, concerns the protection of dignity, brotherhood, social equality, justice, spiritual and moral betterment, safety, property and respect, freedom, education, good governance, reduction of poverty, fulfillment of the need for employment, an opportunity to be self-employed, equal distribution of income and wealth, marriage and a stable family life, family and social solidarity, reduction in crime rate, as well as peace and mental stability. It's the responsibility of the governments to prevent violence resulting from unjust causes. When life is not protected, countries risk collapse and forfeiture of its peace and security. Mind, hifz al-aql. Protection of mind means protection of anything that is destructive. The mind must be protected and nurtured with noble values and beneficial knowledge. All elements that lead to loss and destruction of mind and reason, such as alcohol, drugs, as well as harmful films, must be eradicated and banned immediately. In addition, the provision of the best and holistic infrastructure and education system is the responsibility of the governments to enable every citizen to receive proper education. The mastery of knowledge is the basis of achieving progress and creating civilized people. In facing the challenges of globalization, factors such as integrated knowledge as well as progress in science should become the focus on producing human resources that possess not only knowledge and skills, but also noble values that contribute to the development of the nations, race, and mankind, as well as Muslim Ummah as a whole. Ancestry, Hifzun Nasl. This concept involves the protection and preservation of lineage. It is important in the forming of society that a healthy, productive, and effective lineage must be protected to protect the social system within the community. When lineage is tainted by going against the religion and human nature through acts such as adultery, sodomy, homosexuality, the social structure will be reduced to chaos and eventuality. The purity of lineage will be corrupted, leading to the destruction of the dignity of religion, race, and nation. Property, hifz al-mal. Protection of property means protecting society's wealth from ruin and from illegal transfer of property to others, including prohibition against injustice and denial of rights. It's the obligation of the governments to protect against and ban all forms of oppression, usury practices, fraud, corruption, monopolies, copyright piracy, violation of intellectual rights, market manipulation, and all other forms of misappropriation or other matters that oppress and harm others. Economic development may be carried out through the consolidation of human resources, education, technological advances, work ethics, formulation of the proper financial and fiscal policies to accelerate development, access to capital through microfinancing for the poor, as well as provision of the employment and employment opportunities. SDG 15 targets. By 2020, ensure conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of terrestrial and inland freshwater ecosystems and their services, in particular forests, wetlands, uh, mountains, and drylands, in line with obligations other international agreements. By 2020, promote the implementation of sustainable management of all types of forests, halt deforestation, restore degraded forests, and increase afforestation and reforestation by good percentage, significant percentage globally. By 2020, combat desertification and restore degraded land and soil, including land affected by desertification, drought, and floods, and strive to achieve a land degradation neutral world. By 2030, ensure the conservation of mountain ecosystem, including their biodiversity, to enhance their capacity to provide benefits which are essential for sustainable development. Take urgent and significant action to reduce degradation of natural habitat, halt the loss of biodiversity, and by 2020 protect and prevent the extinction of threatened species. Ensure fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources and promote appropriate access to the genetic resources. Take urgent action to end uh, approaching and trafficking, poaching and trafficking of protected species of flora and fauna and address both demand and supply of illegal wildlife products. By 2020, introduce measures to prevent the introduction and significantly reduce the impact of invasive alien species on land and water ecosystems and control or eradicate the priority species. By 2020, integrate ecosystems and biodiversity values into national and local planning, development processes, and poverty reduction strategies and accounts. Mobilize and significantly increase from all sources financial resources to conserve and sustainably use biodiversity and ecosystems. Mobilize significantly resources from all sources and at all levels to finance sustainable forest management and provide adequate incentives to developing countries to advance sustainable forest management, including for conservation and reforestation. Enhance global support to efforts to combat poaching and trafficking of protected species, including by increasing the capacity of local communities to pursue sustainable livelihood opportunities. That concludes my today's talk, ladies and gentlemen. I'm profoundly thankful to all of you for listening to me and as well as passing it on to others. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow His guidance upon you all and grant you what is best suited for you. Allah Hafiz, till next time.